These were Kurdish guns firing from Kirkuk at Saddam Hussein's loyalist forces before the start of his attempt to retake the city. Kirkuk fell to opposition government forces more than a week ago and was their major prize. Since then, the oil capital of the north was under almost daily attack by government artillery and a steady escalation in the number of raids by helicopter gunships. Kirkuk's inhabitants were convinced Saddam Hussein was using these rocket attacks, often against civilian targets, as a weapon of terror. If so, it appeared to have worked, with people streaming out of Kirkuk all week and heading to safer areas in the north. Perhaps a quarter of the city's 600,000 inhabitants left their homes. Medical staff at Kirkuk's main hospital claimed that more than 1,000 wounded Peshmerga fighters and civilians have been brought in since the fighting began. This Arab girl was one of the youngest. She is 7 years old. Her left foot was blown off. 200 people are reported to have been killed, and as the fighting intensified, the number of casualties is expected to rise sharply. The city emptied, and people are existing under dire conditions, deteriorating daily.
They are without food, they are without water, they are without health care, without every human being human need they are without.
By late yesterday afternoon, Saddam Hussein's forces were attacking the main Kirkuk highway, splitting the rebel supply line and threatening to push on the city. Kurdish guerrilla reinforcements massed under rocket attacks from helicopters circling overhead. They were expecting to face a 35,000-strong government force, roughly double their own fighters. A conflict the Peshmerga resistance is neither trained or equipped for. They have always existed as a lightly armed partisan force, accustomed to guerrilla warfare in the mountains, not an urban ground battle against heavy armor, artillery and air power. Nevertheless, the Peshmergas were bracing themselves for a major conflict which could prove to be a turning point in their challenge to the regime of Baghdad. The build-up of fighting men from 16 to 60 years of age took most of the day. Many came from small Kurdish tribes whose chiefs pledged their support for a united Kurdish front against the Iraqi dictator. The resolve of this ragtag army was not in question. Their many weaknesses were of a practical nature, with reinforcements, for instance, held up in huge traffic jams, waiting for petrol. Their range of weapons was limited in the face of what would almost certainly be an enemy superior in organization and firepower. That point was soon made. Up to 10,000 rebels had gathered in open countryside, some 30 miles north of Kirkuk, when the helicopter gunships came in much closer for a ground assault. They hovered and watched before launching salvos of rockets. They narrowly missed their target. The helicopters flew high and just beyond the range of accuracy for the Kurdish guns. Right now, 3 army helicopters are about 2 miles to my right over there, and the Kurdish guerrillas are throwing up a great deal of ground-to-air fire. The barrage of anti-aircraft fire fell short of the targets. The guerrillas had no surface-to-air missiles to seriously threaten the airstrikes. The Kurds, though, are quite undeterred by their shortcomings in the theatre of battle and have showed no sign of moral weakness in their attempt to topple Saddam Hussein. Brent Sadler, ITN, outside Kirkuk in northern Iraq. A few miles south of these refugees, Saddam Hussein's forces were pushing into Kirkuk in some of the bloodiest fighting since the start of the Kurdish rebellion. At least 10,000 people, mostly women and children, were streaming north to find refuge. Their self-imposed evacuation was calm and orderly as family groups moved slowly away from the battles, struggling to carry a few possessions and the means to survive. Some of the Peshmerga fighters escorted them on this long trek to safety, which could take many days. With control of Kirkuk disputed, the Kurdish fighters are clearly under pressure. But in towns like Arbil, 30 miles away, the Kurds are very much in control, for now at least. The battle for this building in that town was fierce but short. Its conquest, and many other establishments like it, has revealed vital factual evidence about the ruling regime. The men who worked here and piled up thousands of dossiers on people's lives were servants of Baghdad's dreaded secret police, the Securitate of Iraq. Unknown numbers of Kurds were brought to these cells, which can be found in all towns, for torture and interrogation. Many of those incarcerated here were never seen again. Prisoners were hanged. The method was crude. The Kurds say a short rope was looped over an iron hook and the victim forced to stand on a stool until it was kicked away. There is a repugnant odor of death and suffering in these places of detention, where the instruments of torture are still lying around, like these two plastic pipes tied together to flog prisoners. Some of them scratched final messages on the wall. One man left this warning.
He said, the one who come here will not get out easily.
I feel sorry about seeing these places because most of my people, Kurdish people, are killed in these places. And I feel happy because we get liberation.
At a second building in Arbil, a Peshmerga demonstrated how political prisoners were tied up and made to wedge themselves behind an iron rail for beatings and questioning. Many records of state terror were ransacked or destroyed in the fighting, but the Kurds say pictures of death by firing squad were retrieved from one of the police HQs. No one knows who these people were or when they were shot. After breaking into one of Saddam Hussein's mountain villas, they uncovered more about his lifestyle and walked into the presidential suite to find a style of bed they had never seen before.
They are very happy because they are buying in Saddam's bedroom.
Disgusting. Dictator. Saddam is not a Ceausescu. He's a rich Ceausescu, and is much more dangerous.
The impact of the Kurdish attempt to topple Saddam Hussein has crippled all forms of civilian life. And the hardships, like finding fuel oil, will seriously escalate as more people attempt to flee the areas of conflict. These scenes of Kurdish refugee families escaping Kirkuk, the city limits and surrounding villages speak for themselves. Saddam Hussein's loyalist government forces are on the offensive, and the Kurdish gains have begun to crumble. Brent Sadler, ITN, outside Kirkuk in northern Iraq.